What's up, guys? This is Sean here from Washed Up Media. We are hanging out in New York City today at Gramercy Theater, and we have a special guest here, my man Aaron from Rings of Saturn. These guys are on a headlining tour right now. It's been doing pretty fucking awesome, and why don't you tell the guys a little bit more about this tour that you guys are on right now?
Yeah, so the tour we're on is with, obviously us, Necrogoblicon, Legion, Lorna Shore, Entheos, and Gloom. It's going by super sick. A lot of the dates have been selling out. There haven't really, crossing my fingers, knock on wood, ceramic, drywall, whatever.
Drywall. It's all good.
There haven't really been any duds on the tour so far. Usually when you go out, there's one or two dates about halfway through or a few of the days through where it's kind of a downer show.
Of course.
You know, this one hasn't really had any. It started off with a bang, and the morale's been super high just because the shows have all been super killer, which is cool. I mean, and it's surprising, not because I'm surprised that we're doing well, but just because I'm surprised that there hasn't been something, you know, that has been a fork in the, not a fork in the road, but a bump in the road. You
Absolutely,
know?
man.
It's all been real smooth so far.
Well, we were talking before, and you guys have been doing a lot of supporting runs, so this is
Right.
this is your first headlining run in a little bit, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so the last full-length headlining run we did was in 2014. That was before we released our album, Lugal Kien. So
Okay.
that was 2 albums ago.
Oh, wow.
We did one 2 summers ago, but it was more like routing dates. It was just a couple weeks, so it wasn't really a full-length one. So, yeah, this is the first one in about 3.5 years.
Very sick.
Yeah.
Stoked to hear for you guys. So now the lineup, man. This lineup's pretty stacked. Did you guys pick the lineup? Was it kind of like put together through a management? How did that go about?
Yeah, so really the way it works is you get a bunch of bands that submit to your tour. So what that means is that when somebody's booking agent or management or when bands hear about the tour going on, they are submitted for consideration for that tour. Also, if there's a band that you want to take out that isn't on that submission list, you can just be like, hey, how about them? Let's hit them up. Let's hit up their management.
Very cool.
So, yeah, we were given a long list of bands that were options that either submitted or that were good ideas or that shared management with us or whatever, and then just went from there. So it's a super eclectic tour for sure. A lot of bands that are not really the same, but I think that's what makes it so sick, honestly.
Yeah, man.
It's not boring.
You see kids of all kinds coming out, man. You got like every brand of metal kid at this show. It's very, very cool to see.
Yeah, yeah.
So I want to jump right into the new album, or the most recent album.
Right.
Yeah. I'm going to allow you to say the pronunciation or the correct pronunciation, because I've heard thousands of it.
Well, what do you think it is?
Ultu Ulla.
Ian, how do you properly say it? It's Ultu Ulla, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. So it wasn't too off.
Yeah, no,
It wasn't too off.
Yeah.
Very nice. Yeah, man, I got to say, as a fan of the band, I love the album. I mean, it seems like it's been getting a great response from fans overall. How do you guys feel about it?
We are super happy with it, for sure. What we really wanted to focus on doing was maturing and progressing as a band and with our sound. We still made sure that we were catering to that Rings of Saturn crazy alien core.
You guys absolutely kept that in there.
Kind of sound,
cool.
Yeah, exactly. So we wanted to make something that would keep those Rings ingredients present and keep all of our current fans happy, but that would sort of also open up our horizons to fans of other bands that weren't really fans of what Rings of Saturn was doing in the past. And I think that we pretty much achieved that goal as far as we wanted to. All of our fans are, for the most part, still happy, and we gain a lot of appreciation from fans of other types of metal that can understand it more, because the album's just a little bit more palatable.
Yeah, man, I gotta say, I really love all like the little acoustic stuff.
Yeah,
and, like the little
yeah.
like I forget which track it is, but it's kind of got like a little bit of like a circus vibe in the beginning of it.
Harvest.
Like, yes,
yeah,
Harvest.
Uh-huh.
Okay, cool. Yeah, man, it's a great album, and if you don't have it, you need to go pick it up immediately.
Please.
What I would also like to talk about with you is, as I know with modern metal, this is kind of like a long question, but I'll try to get it through as brief as possible. In modern metal, I feel like there's a lot of guitar players kind of like doing the whole bit. Like they're writing their guitar parts, and they're also writing drums, they're writing the bass, and some of them are even doing vocals. I was curious on what your opinion is on guitar players that do all of that and kind of don't always have the drummer perspective to ground them, but at the same time, that kind of pushes drummers to kind of push themselves and like learn you know, like play a little faster, like really step it up. Is that kind of something that you think is good, or do you think like it kind of like is not good? I guess is really the way to say it.
Okay, well, I can say from experience. I mean, the Rings records that were put out before I was in the band were written by guitar players,
Right.
and so including the drums,
Right,
is
right.
what I mean to say. The drums were written by guitar players, so there were a lot of things that were just flat out impossible to play. Like, you can't do it. And
Very
so,
unconventional as a drummer to kind of like hear that.
yeah, but not just unconventional and not just different or weird, but physically impossible to do. So when I play them live or when I do playthroughs of them, I have to change the parts.
Right.
Maybe shorten a fill here or change some note values, whatever, to make it actually reasonable. But as far as the main question, it definitely did push me to be a better drummer for sure. I mean, if I hadn't had to have learned those parts, I probably would have written ones that were more in my range and more in my comfort zone from the get-go. So it definitely did push me to become a better drummer. I would say the only thing is that now, in the age of where metal is at, when you go see a death metal band live, it's never going to sound how it is on the record because it's so produced and it's
Very true.
so fixed up and cleaned up. And also, for example, blast beats are a really good thing to touch on. Live, the blast beats are always going to be way quieter than any other, snare hit. But when you listen to a band's record, it's just super high,
Right, of
and
course.
so
Sound replacement in the studio.
yeah, exactly.
all sorts
So
of things.
I think that right now there's this weird thing going on where there's this different perception of what people think is actually happening and what how people think the instruments work. I guess there's this unrealistic expectation to play like a computer.
Absolutely,
I mean, I
man.
remember before I played in bands like this, I thought that all of the drumming on these death metal and deathcore records were how the drummer physically played. Like, I thought that they were playing those blast beats as hard and doing all that stuff all at that same level. You know what I mean? So I think that it's cool in the sense of, like I said earlier, pushing you beyond your limits, but there's definitely a lot of negativity and a lot of criticism that goes around
Sure.
people who don't understand how the studio works or who don't understand how triggers work. So maybe if
Yeah.
everybody was more informed, it'd be fine, but
Right
a lot
on,
of people,
right on.
how are you going to do that?
Of course, yeah. I mean, you can't just run and tell everybody.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
could on
yeah.
the internet, though. Maybe. But hey,
But not everybody's going to hear it.
So another thing I would like to talk about, something that we were briefly discussing before we started the interview, is you've been a touring drummer for a little bit now, and I believe was Abiotic the first band that you went on the road with as a touring drummer?
Yeah, I had done a little weekend warrior run
Right.
with a band called Animus in the past,
Okay.
and then I've toured with them since. But as far as first full-length tour, yeah, that was with Abiotic.
That's awesome. Now,
Yeah.
how did you kind of like come about getting into that world of being a touring drummer?
Well, I had always wanted to since I
Cool.
started playing. I guess I wouldn't say since I started playing drums. I don't really know what my aspirations were when I started, aside from just wanting to be good or wanting to be good as this drummer or that drummer that were my favorites. But ever since I got into like death metal, the first band I think that got me into that was the Faceless.
Nice.
Yeah, so
Nice.
that's what
Classic.
introduced me into bands like that. I saw them on Summer Slaughter 2010.
Nice.
So, bands on that tour, Decapitated, I got into Animals as Leaders. I think it was around that time, and then when I started making local bands of my own
Nice. Very cool.
with my buddies, Miles being one of them, my guitar player, is when I really wanted to start touring. And so I just put up videos online. I would look through threads on Facebook and other online pages to try and find bands that I could join and play with to tour. And that band Animus came about, and so I hit them up. I was auditioning. I did that 3-day thing with them, and then I joined that band Abiotic. I joined them because they had seen one of my videos on YouTube. It was just kind of a by chance thing that they saw
Nice.
it. So
Yeah, that was cool. That was like the first time we actually officially met. I guess
right,
you could
yeah,
say.
exactly.
Very cool
So
stuff.
I kind of digress, but back to the original question.
Oh,
Yeah,
sure.
That was, what was the original question again?
How you got into being a touring drummer?
Right,
Yeah.
yeah. And so basically just having a passion for wanting to do it once I started playing in bands of my own, and then getting into it was, basically online.
Nice. Yeah. Hey, man, the internet's a great thing. You could
Yeah.
really network yourself amazingly if you kind of push yourself in a great
Yeah.
way. So, as a drummer growing up, who were some of the guys that you really looked up to and that kind of influenced you and pushed you to work, as hard as you have to get to the point where you're at right now? And I know you got that Blink-182 tattoo on your knee.
Yeah. I know that one actually is more recent.
Oh, nice.
They actually weren't really an influence in my formative years. That's
Good to know.
A sort of different kind of question. But anyways, when I was growing up and when I started playing drums, for sure, my favorite drummer was Mike Portnoy from Dream Theater.
Very
and
nice.
then Jason Rulo from Symphony X.
Oh, those are two great bands.
Yeah.
Symphony X is awesome.
My dad was the one that got me into metal and got me into like really having a passion for music, and those were bands that we listened to back in the day. Those type of like progressive metal bands.
Good stuff.
So it was them, and then later on I got into Opeth, so Martin Lopez and Martin Axelrod, and then really got into Porcupine Tree. So the drummer for them, Gavin Harrison, and he's still to this day is pretty much my favorite drummer ever. Every time somebody asks me, it's him.
So good.
And then there was one more that was like a big influence. I mentioned the Faceless. So Lyle Cooper when he was in the band. Yeah, Was
that their original, or like one of their first drummers?
He was on the second record.
Okay.
And the third, I think, I think they've had like 30,000 drummers or something.
Yeah,
like that.
Yeah. They've definitely they've had their run.
Yeah, so he was the sort of like guy that I wanted to get metal chops from.
Cool, very cool.
Yeah.
Now, you are a very active drummer. You have other side projects.
Mm-hmm.
I know you've played drums on a DFB, Dylan's record.
Fur, yeah.
Which I actually ended up doing a lyric video for one of the songs
on really?
that
wow, that's
on
cool.
that release. So another funny connection right there. But do you go out of your way to really like play more with like different artists, or was that kind of just something like that he approached you to do, or is it something you kind of like seek as a drummer?
I definitely go out of my way to do it because from the get-go have always been very versatile as far as my music taste because of most of my parents, my dad and my mom. I've got a super eclectic range of music that I love and that I play. When I started, I didn't even start playing metal and rock. I played jazz in school for years and years and years. Yeah,
that's good though, man. It's great to start with that.
Yeah, and really I've played in death metal bands, deathcore, rock, alt rock, indie rock. I like playing all kinds of different stuff.
That's awesome.
So yeah, I am for sure seeking to play things that are just different than what I'm doing because it's fun. As far as Dylan goes, Dylan was in that local band that I was talking about. I was in with Miles. Yeah,
okay, cool.
We were called Mirrored. So I've known Dylan since I was, I think, a sophomore in high school.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
that's
and so
awesome.
as far as me playing drums
Very
with
cool.
him, that wasn't like me finding a
that was just you guys were just homies
that
from
was
back
my buddy,
in the day.
yeah, and he was like, hey, let's do this, and I'm always going to be down to say yes with him.
That's
so,
awesome. Yeah. Now I know there's another side project that you have with your guitar player, Interloper.
Yeah.
Would you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah,
sure. Yeah. Just like fill us in on kind of what's going on.
So, Interloper, that is a project that it started originally when Miles and I were in that band Mirrored.
Okay.
When we were like 16, 17. Dylan and myself were more into like the progressive rock, progressive metal world, like Opeth, Dream Theater, stuff like that.
Nice.
Miles has always been like a huge Melodeath fan, like Children of Bodom, Winter Sun, Obscura, stuff like that.
Hell yeah.
So he really wanted to play music like that, and that's not really what our band was about, just because we weren't doing that. So when him and I would jam together, we would write stuff like that, melodic death metal type stuff and tech death type stuff. So yeah, when we were like 17, I think, was when we like started first writing those songs, like 16 or 17. The first song is called The Conjuration. It's just like an Obscura ripoff, basically.
Nice.
But so that band got launched, like I want to say 6 months to only a few months, maybe like 3 or 4 months, was launched before Miles joined Rings of Saturn.
Oh wow. Okay.
And so by no intention of ours, it sort of got put on the back burner, and it still definitely is a side project because Rings is our main workhorse, but we originally wanted to have music out and be touring in between Rings tours when we could.
Is there a tour on the foreseeable future?
We would like there to be. Yeah, there's nothing booked and there's nothing like in the woodworks right now, but that's something that we're working towards definitely. We have a bunch of music out. Oh no, sorry, not out. Written.
Nice.
All the
Very
music
cool.
that's out right now is instrumental, sort of like tech deathy stuff. You can find that on YouTube.
But the project has vocals, if not
Yeah,
mistaken.
yeah. So there isn't anything except for teasers out right now, which are also on the Interloper YouTube, that do have vocals. And we're still definitely a progressive metal band, but it's not as much of like a tech death, blast beat fest as it once was. It definitely leans more to the, clean singing, catchy,
Cool.
but also still technical type side. I think that a lot of our fans are still gonna like it, but it's going to be different than what you expect, which is kind of the goal.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Just by talking to you, you got to diversify it,
Right.
keep things different. Lastly, I would just like to talk about what's on the future for Rings. Do you guys have like any other tours lined up, or is it just?
So we're a little more than halfway through this headliner,
Right.
This U.S. headliner. And then the day after it ends, we fly to Europe, and we're on tour with Origin. At the end of that,
Origin are
yeah.
sick, man.
Yeah.
Origin are out of control.
Right. And so we're on tour with them for about a month. We have a couple of headlining shows. We play 2 fests at the end of that Europe run. Back home, May 1st. And then right now, we don't have anything in the works. I'm sure that between now and the time that the tours are wrapped up, we'll probably get an offer or probably get some ideas going for what we need to do.
Nice.
But right now, nothing. I'm going to be guessing that we're going to be looking to starting the writing process soonish.
Very cool.
The last record came out almost a year ago now. So, between writing and then recording and getting all that done, it's probably going to be time to do it within the next few months.
Sick, man. Well, that about wraps this up.
Hell yeah.
Thanks for talking with us.
Thanks for having me, man.
We'll see you guys next time. Thank you for watching.